the goals, both commercially and in a government lens, are focused on being able to get the hardware and deploy the hardware. And so it's really, to us, the supply chain is the unlock. And it's admittedly pretty brittle, and that's in large part because aerospace is very hard. And it's not getting easier, but if you can learn from previous experiences and also, again, focus on supply chain as a key, the crux of the problem, I think you can more effectively, address the end problem, which is like, we want more satellites, right? But the key to that, the skeleton key, we think, is supply chain. So that's really where we're focused.
All right, so Gabe, it is really nice to speak with you. It's so great to meet you. Let's start with an intro, please. Tell me a bit about yourself, and then we'll get into what you do at Ursa Major too.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria. Super excited to be here representing Ursa Major. So my name's Gabe Zimmerman. I'm from New York originally. Maybe my accent will give it away throughout this podcast, but it's been a while since I've lived there, so maybe it won't. Mechanical engineering by training at Cornell University. Did a informative and super awesome co-op at JPL, where I kind of got my teeth really into aerospace, and have been in aerospace roughly the last decade since. Spent about 5 years at a legacy aerospace and defense company, and then came to Ursa Major originally as a designer, doing work on Hadley and then Draper. And now most recently, the last year and a half has been all in space, which is really what we're here to talk about today. So been a journey through design, some business work, a lot of kind of how do we deploy a new product line and really offer existing capabilities from Ursa Major into something new and disruptive and exciting.
Gabe, that was a great intro. Thank you for that. And it's always really cool to talk to you guys from Ursa Major, because you all are so laser focused on what you do, and you are very, very good at it. So it's always really cool hearing about what's the latest that you're working on. And it's been a little while since I've caught up with Ursa Major, so I would love to hear the latest. I would say it's been almost about a year.
Yeah.
And you guys have been working hard. So tell me a bit about what you've been up to in the last year.
Sure, yes. So Ursa Major as a whole has been just ticking off history-making events, flying hypersonically, flying solid missile systems, and then really deploying this new in-space product line focused on space mobility. And so when I talk about in-space, it's obviously launch, and it's kind of getting to orbit, but then we're really focused, the team I work with is on, once you're in space, how do you get around, and how do you do so effectively, efficiently, reliably? And so we'll talk about space mobility. I'm really want to, and I'm excited to talk about space satellite propulsion. So we've been kind of the last year has really just been technology maturation and manufacturing maturation, and then also trying to really listen to what our customers and the end users are saying and respond to that to make sure we're bringing value to the table and really can offer a service and a technology that people want to use and need to use, and we can stay, ahead, cutting edge as a country and as a company.
Yeah. I'd love to hear more about that maturation that's been going on. I love the acronyms like TRL.
Yeah.
It's obligatory, but I feel like we got to talk about that a little bit. So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah. So we've got so the space mobility team is really focused on components and systems for satellites. So we're focused on monopropellant hydrazine. So it's kind of the legacy propellant and the legacy kind of tried and true a method to move around in space for a chemical system. And we are targeting, if you want to actually offer something new and disruptive, you have to make all the pieces of the puzzle or all the pieces of the propulsion system. So for that, or for us, that's tanks, that's thrusters, that's avionics, and then that's system design. And so I can give a little bit of detail, and I'm excited to, about each of those, but we really are targeting how do we take the components and walk them through maturing the technology, iterating quickly, testing again, learning some stuff, testing again, and then also co-developing the manufacturing so that when we want to go make hundreds or thousands, we're not then figuring that out. We're actually doing that in parallel.
Yeah, I both parts of what you just said, I'd love to dive into.
Sure.
So I'd love to hear more about sort of the different components along the way, but also I want to put a pin in the discussion of sort of the larger manufacturing supply chain, because that's something that I've talked to you guys about before as well, that I've always, you're definitely a leader in speaking on that, and I don't want to forget that. So let's talk about the components first, and then we'll get into the broader manufacturing base after.
That sounds perfect. Yeah, so to start, we'll just start with thrusters. So we're making a monopropellant hydrazine thruster. To do that, we're kind of using what's been proven and then building on that to make sure we can match the reliability and kind of performance of the legacy providers who have been objectively successful at delivering effective products, but then also offering a cost and a lead time that starts to discern Ursa Major, because like you said, it's really a supply chain issue as much as it's a performance issue. And so to do that, we've done numerous trade studies and designs of experiments through the injector, through the catalyst bed, through the kind of the thermals, and we've run probably a dozen plus versions to continue to progress incrementally, learn something, iterate. And so the team has been doing that. That's all in a vacuum test environment. So you're getting tests like you fly. We're not, we really want to make sure we're wringing out anything we could learn before we go to orbit, because that's a bad time to learn you miss something. So we've got a really disciplined and effective technology path on the thruster, and are kind of producing them at a nice cadence, stepping into a kind of a higher rate production.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds like that is the vision, and I know that it's been for a while, but you guys are moving really solidly in that direction of really building out that scale. There are a lot of steps between us now and then, though. What does that look like in the meantime?
Yeah, there are a lot of steps, and some of the hardest stuff is making a lot of something. Making one of something, it can be a bit more artistic. It can be a little bit more manual. We really need to have manufacturing processes and digital backbone that lends itself to that scale. So for us, and I mentioned it briefly, it's kind of that code development. So we don't want to figure out how to make 100 after we've made 10. We want to be thinking about how to make 100 or 1,000 as we go. So for us, that's
smart.
Strategic vertical integration. So bringing in things like vacuum brazing, which is a key process used throughout our thruster, where we control the process. We've developed our own specs for it, and then we're using that successfully to make thrusters in batches. We can do lots. We've got CNC laser welding. So that's, again, all computer automated. We dial in a process, we qualify the process, and then we build on that and use it for production. And there's kind of countless examples. But if you kind of get all the steps to get to a thruster ironed out, you can effectively scale a lot easier, where maybe the answer to scaling is just a second shift or a second work center, but you've inherently built it around a scalable process. So that's really how we think about it, as a co-development and inherent to our philosophy as a product line and as a company, because really across all the products, it's about scale. People want a lot of the things so that we can use them somewhat without regret and strategically, and not have to be rationing, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, especially you were mentioning space mobility, huge area of growth right there, and we need a lot of what you all are making.
Yes,
and we need them soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to, there's some buzzwords like maneuvering without regret, like assured access to space, and those things rely on being able to get the hardware, trust the hardware, deploy the hardware, and then get more of it. Right? Legacy aerospace. And there's a time and a place, but it's a lot of exquisite bespoke satellites, and that could take years to engineer, years to build, years to launch. And for some of these applications, you want proliferation, and you want to just it's a bit of a numbers game. So we are trying to angle ourselves to really support that, because we think that's really where the industry is going. That's what the government is looking for, the end users, and ultimately for national security reasons, and also commercial, and the benefits of civilians like you and me, works for both. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious about your thoughts on sort of the state of the broader supply chain that supports what you all are doing. Is it? There is a lot of discussion about it needing, to rise to the occasion, so to speak. How do you feel that it's going right now?
It's going. I think no the trends and we're seeing kind of a new generation of aerospace companies, defense companies pushing that supply chain as almost the foundation cornerstone of what they're offering. And so, we want to offer propulsion, chemical propulsion as a commodity where a lot of manufacturers can rely on Ursa Major to be a trusted partner. We're also seeing that same behavior at the satellite manufacturer level. Those are our partners, our customers. They are trying to make more common platforms and really address that supply chain issue. But ultimately, the goals, both commercially and in a government lens, are focused on being able to get the hardware and deploy the hardware. And so it's really, to us, the supply chain is the unlock, and it's admittedly pretty brittle, and that's in large part because aerospace is very hard, and it's not getting easier.
Yeah.
But if you can learn from previous experiences and also, again, focus on supply chain as a key, the crux of the problem, I think you can more effectively, address the end problem, which is like, we want more satellites, right? But the key to that, the skeleton key, we think, is supply chain. So that's really where we're focused.
That makes a lot of sense. And switching to that focus, so the next year or so, again, I imagine you all have had a very busy year as it is. What's next?
Yes. Yeah. So for the in-space team, what's next is pushing through qualifications. So we're either starting or about to start qualification on a handful of products. Those products are going to go into the hands of customers, partners of ours who we're excited about, because they have a shared focus and a shared vision on that kind of supply chain and manufacturing and scale. That's really what they're targeting. That's what we're targeting. And so we're excited to kind of get products over the line, get products on the shelf in the hands of our current customers, in the hands of future customers, and then into orbit in 2027, maybe a little earlier. Some of that's a little outside of our control, but either way, it's a very dynamic, 12 to 18 months upcoming. And then Ursa more widely has got plenty of flights coming across our product lines. And so, that same, I'm talking through the lens of in-space, but that you could take my words and basically apply them to our hypersonics platforms, our solid missile systems platforms, and it's a very similar narrative. So it's really a growth time, a deployment time, and a scale time.
Yeah, it's always really exciting catching up with you guys, because it's just you're building really cool stuff. Yeah. And that's just like I love to nerd.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just like you're making some. Yeah. I mean, like, that's the great thing is y'all do too, and you get to work on it. So it's even better talking.
Yeah. If I tilt my head over, there's some fire behind me, and if this podcast was 10 minutes longer, we might hear the room shake while a hot fire goes off. So yeah, it's a.
Oh, dang it.
But you can go to YouTube and find videos of hot fires. But yeah, it keeps you on your toes, and we're all, at least me, I'm a nerd. And so it scratches the itch and keeps me coming back for more. So
that's the best. That's the best. Gabe, I want to make sure if there's anything that I forgot to ask or should have asked and didn't that we cover. Is there anything I missed that you wanted to mention to the audience today?
No, I think we did a great job of touching on the key cornerstones. Very well done, Maria. But no, it's just Gabe, that's you. Good job, Gabe.
Good
job, us. No, but it's been an exciting previous 12 months with technology and manufacturing scaling across Ursa Major flights, and it's going to be an exciting upcoming 12, 24, 36, and out. Just as we continue to build on, the cross-product lessons learned, the technology, the manufacturing, and really get our propulsion systems and products into the hands of people and the teams who need them.
So awesome. Well, Gabe, thanks so much for this great catch-up.
Yeah.
And great work to everybody at Ursa Major. You're always doing cool stuff. So I really appreciate you taking the time and walking me through it. And all the best in the coming months.
Thank you, Maria.
Your time.
Hope to speak soon.